Hello and welcome to the ITEC 4248 demo for the final project, the employee portal. I'm just going to go through quickly a demo of the page itself, and then we'll look at the database and finally some of the code behind the scenes. So starting with the main page, we basically have our menu options here on the left. We'll start with My Portal, which gives us information about the user. It uses the default of the first user if no one is logged in. And you see we have the information. Moving on to the search, we have the ability to search for employees by entering information. In the search, you'll see the more you enter, the more it narrows it down. Once you found one that you like, you select that employee, and you can see their profile as well. So you can also get to the search from here. Returning back to the home page, finally is the login screen. You have two types of logins. You can log in as either an employee or as an administrator. To log in as an employee, to log in as an administrator, you need the administrative password and user ID. If you use an employee password, for example, and attempt to log in as an administrator, you get an error telling you that that is not correct. So if we try as an admin, in the admin access button, we should go to the add employee profile, which we do. One thing to note before we start is that there is validation here. If fields do not have values entered, you submit the form, you get errors as seen here. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and create a new user. Let's see, new user 9, and we'll give them a password. And we don't want people to look over our shoulders as we enter information, so we'll hide the password. And giving them a name, let's see, how about Jimmy, if I could type, Johnson. We'll give them an 800 number. No, that works. And Jimmy at company.com. His office is 789. His boss's name is Jerry Johnson. Okay. And his job is to do whatever he is told to do. So we enter all of that. Everything is there and valid. When we click submit, we see the user profile is updated. His information is now in the database, as we'll see in a little bit. Going to the employee login first, and we'll see the validation in place for trying to log in as an admin. When it is not an admin login. And you get the error message there. Now, attempting to log in as a non-admin takes us to our login information screen. So a couple things we want to note here. If you attempt to save an invalid email, you get an email error message, or a validation message saying it's not valid. Updating things is pretty easy. We can update to say we want to add a hobby of golfing, and let's say we want to delete this hobby and this hobby, and then we submit, and our user profile is updated. And that concludes the demo of the website, and next we'll take a look at the database itself. Next, we're going to take a look at the database structure that the employee portal uses. It consists of 9 tables, 1 admin table, and then the other 8 tables are all related to the employee information, with the 9th table being the skills table, which is just a list of skills that each of the employees can have. So starting with the admin table, it's just an admin user ID and username and password. This is what's needed to log in if you want to log in as an admin. If you want to add additional admins, it's just adding more rows to the table. The employees table is the main table that drives the site. You store the username, password, and email address of each user on the site in this table. Then you have a series of additional tables that are linked by these foreign keys here that contain the rest of the information on the employee. The person and reports to ID key to the people table, and those are the names of your employee and your manager. The office ID links to the office table, which is the room and phone number for the office of the employee. The job description links to their job description. Hobbies and likes are self-explanatory. Those link to their hobbies and likes. So taking a look at the people table, for example, you see employee 1 had a people ID of 1, so his name is James Dean. His reports to ID, or his supervisor or boss, was 2, which links to Mr. Big. So when you display that on the screen, these are the names that you'll see. Looking at the office ID next, we had an office ID of 1, so we get his office number of 555 and then his phone number. And his job description also 1, so we find that this is his job description here. And his likes and hobbies were also 1, so we see there's a row for each. One thing I would do if I had more time to do this, or if I wanted to take the site a little further, would be to actually write these out to individual rows rather than as strings on one row, and have them both be entered the same way hobbies are now. It's just a little bit cleaner in both the code and the data to do it that way. And then finally you have the employee skills table and the skill table, which go together. These skills are the skills that populate the checkboxes in the application to let you know what skills are available and can be selected for each employee. And if an employee's checkbox is selected, then a row is created on this employee skills table showing their ID and the skill ID so that we know which skills the employee has selected. Adding one will add an additional row to the table. If they uncheck a skill in the application, it will take the row, delete the row from the table. So that pretty much covers the database, and next we'll take a look at some of the code behind the scenes. And finally, we're going to take a look at some of the code behind the scenes to make the page work. Take a look at the login, which is pretty straightforward. You have a checkbox that we saw on the login page, the admin access, and if that box is checked, then we're going to this query to select from the admin the user ID password to validate. If that user ID is found, then you'll be taken to the add profile page, which we'll look at in a minute. Otherwise, you get the error message we saw earlier. Conversely, if it is not an admin login, we see the select is done from the employees table using username and password there. Again, if you find an employee, it goes to the edit profile, at which point it will load their employee profile into that edit page. Otherwise, you'll get an error message, which we saw before. Looking at the add profile, it's pretty straightforward as well. Information is entered into the form, and then once it's entered in here, we do a series of the validation steps that we looked at to verify that everything is good, and if it's there and it's okay, we run a script to insert the new profile. And that also is very straightforward. It's a series of insert statements that insert data into all of the tables that we need to that we've entered onto the form. If you log into the edit profile, you're brought up to this page, which also does a similar validation. Another area of opportunity here is to pull this validation out of abstracted out of both of these add and edit profiles and put it into its own page and use it for both, make it a little more generic. That would be the proper way to do this, given more time to go back and do that. As you log in, as you come to this page, if you have not logged in other words, your session employee ID is not passed in, you will be taken to the login page to log in before you can edit a profile. If you have logged in, then we go to the Get Employee to get the information, and that's this page here. It simply selects the data for the employee, which is then placed onto the page. If you go through the validation, once you submit the form and all the validation passes, you'll run the Update Profile script, and this is similar to the insert profile, except it's doing updates instead of inserts. So you see all of these are updated. The only inserts done here are in the skills section, where you may either insert or delete a skill depending if one is added or not. And let's see. And then finally we have the search page, where you can you can enter in a text and it will attempt to find an employee. The HTML is pretty basic. You have the get hint, which searches the database for names that are like, names, phone numbers, emails that are like the information that's been entered into the search box, and if it finds it, it returns it, and with the help of a little bit of JavaScript, and it will then display that information in the list we saw, where you can select the name that you want to. And that pretty much covers the highlights of the code and concludes our demonstration. Thank you.